October 12, 1943. Above the darkened streets of Berlin. A Lancaster bomber sliced through the night sky, engines vibrating with steady power. Inside, the crew huddled in tense silence, each aware of the deadly gauntlet awaiting them. Anti-aircraft fire erupted below, tracer rounds cutting through darkness, but the greater threat hovered unseen: German night fighters. In the tail turret, Flight Sergeant James Ellis scanned the black void, eyes straining for movement. Every shadow could be a fighter, every flicker a tracer round. Suddenly, a silhouette appeared, closing fast on their starboard quarter. Without hesitation, Ellis swung the turret, tracking the fighter's approach with calm precision. He squeezed the trigger, sending bullets tearing through the night. The enemy aircraft wavered, veering away from the Lancaster. The crew, unaware of the immediate danger, carried out their bombing run with focus and determination. Behind them, the tail gunner's vigilance ensured their survival. One man, alert and decisive, had altered the course of the mission. The bomber remained intact, the crew undetected from the first deadly attack. Yet more threats loomed, and the night over Berlin had only just begun. By late 1943, the RAF had shifted its approach to strategic bombing. After years of defensive operations and earlier daytime raids, the emphasis was now on night operations. Berlin, the heart of German industry and governance, had become a central target. Each raid carried immense risk, but also the potential to disrupt production, morale, and command structures. Lancaster bombers had become the workhorses of Bomber Command. Large, versatile, and heavily armed, they were designed to carry significant payloads deep into enemy territory. Yet their effectiveness relied on the skill and coordination of the crews. Each bomber operated as a small, self-contained unit. The pilot, navigator, bombardier, engineers, and gunners all depended on each other for survival. Within this microcosm, the tail gunner held a unique responsibility. Positioned at the very rear of the aircraft, he was the first and last line of defense against enemy fighters. Flight Sergeant James Ellis and his peers had undergone rigorous training. Tail gunners learned to anticipate enemy behavior, track targets in low visibility, and maintain composure under fire. Instruments were limited, relying on sight, radar warning receivers, and coordination with the crew. Every decision, from the direction of fire to timing of engagement, could mean the difference between life and death. The stakes were compounded by the defenses over Berlin. The city was heavily protected by flak batteries, searchlights, and coordinated night fighter patrols. German pilots, trained and experienced, prowled the skies for any gap in formations. RAF crews knew that a single misstep could result in catastrophic loss. Yet confidence in training and procedure remained the foundation of every sortie. Intelligence played a critical role. Reconnaissance photos, intercepted communications, and analysis of prior raids informed mission planning. Commanders calculated flight paths, altitudes, and approach angles to minimize exposure to flak and night fighters. Yet even the best planning could be undone by human error or the unpredictable movements of an enemy aircraft. The tail gunner, watching the rear, was essential to bridging that gap. Night bombing demanded extreme coordination. Formation integrity was vital. Bombers relied on overlapping fields of fire to protect each other. Yet gaps could form within seconds. The rear-facing guns were crucial in deterring or destroying approaching fighters, buying time for the crew to complete their mission. Ellis and his peers understood that vigilance had to be constant, that complacency could be fatal. Morale and mental resilience were equally important. Extended flights over hostile territory tested endurance, nerves, and trust in fellow crew members. The tail gunner's role was both physically demanding and psychologically taxing. He faced isolation in the turret, limited mobility, and the constant awareness that any enemy approaching from behind could destroy the bomber. Yet this pressure forged focus, and the crews learned to operate as a single, disciplined entity. RAF leadership emphasized preparation and rehearsal. Simulated attacks, instrument practice, and scenario drills prepared gunners for the myriad threats they would encounter. Procedures for identifying and engaging night fighters were ingrained. Coordination with the pilot, navigator, and mid-upper gunner ensured that every defensive action complemented offensive objectives. The bomber was a machine, yes, but it was the human element, the trained, alert, and resolute crew that defined success. As Lancaster formations gathered for the Berlin mission, each crew carried this knowledge into the night. They knew the hazards of anti-aircraft fire, the dangers of night fighters, and the potential for loss. Yet they also carried confidence, preparation, discipline, and the resolve of a trained team provided the best defense. In these conditions, the tail gunner's vigilance was not just a responsibility, it was the safeguard of the entire crew. The night ahead would test every lesson, every skill, and every moment of focus. As the bombers crossed the North Sea, engines humming steadily, each crew member relied on the others. And above all, they relied on the tail gunner to protect them from the unseen dangers lurking in the darkness behind. German night defenses over Berlin were formidable. The Luftwaffe employed a network of radar stations, searchlights, and night fighters designed to detect, track, and destroy incoming bombers. The Freya and Wurzburg radar systems provided early warning, while night fighter units patrolled known bomber routes. Experienced pilots, familiar with RAF tactics, relied on both radar guidance and visual detection to intercept aircraft. Despite these defenses, gaps existed. Radar coverage was uneven, and communication between ground controllers and fighter pilots was sometimes delayed or fragmented. British intelligence meticulously mapped these weaknesses, noting areas where formations could slip through or where rapid, coordinated action could neutralize threats. RAF planners recognized that exploiting German assumptions, complacency, or predictable patrol patterns could greatly increase mission success. Tail gunners were central to survival in this environment. Positioned at the rear, they faced the first threat from attacking night fighters. With limited instruments and minimal visibility, the gunners relied on keen observation, situational awareness, and rapid reaction. Their role extended beyond defensive fire. Their vigilance allowed the pilot to focus on navigation and the bombardier to focus on the mission objective. A single lapse could allow a fighter to approach undetected, potentially crippling the bomber and jeopardizing the crew. RAF crews trained extensively for these scenarios. Simulated attacks emphasized coordination between tail, mid-upper, and forward gunners. Pilots learned to adjust formation and evasive maneuvers based on gunner feedback. Bombing runs were rehearsed under varying conditions, ensuring that crews could react instinctively to the unpredictable movements of enemy aircraft. Discipline and rehearsal turned fear into actionable awareness. Night bombing over Berlin also demanded precise timing. The city was heavily defended, and approach paths had to be carefully calculated to minimize exposure to flak and fighter interception. Each bomber carried the weight of mission objectives and crew survival. 4 tail gunners, seconds could determine life or death. Their focus and decisiveness were critical to maintaining formation integrity and ensuring mission completion. German night fighter tactics were adaptive. Pilots often approached from blind spots or coordinated with ground radar to strike at weak points in bomber formations. Yet British training emphasized anticipation. Tail gunners learned to track movement, recognize attack patterns, and communicate with the rest of the crew to mount defensive maneuvers. Their vigilance turned potential vulnerabilities into opportunities for survival. Psychological resilience played a key role. Tail gunners operated in isolation at the rear, with limited mobility and exposure to enemy fire. Maintaining calm under such conditions was essential. Trust in training, reliance on instruments, and confidence in fellow crew members allowed gunners to perform under extreme pressure. The human element, focus, courage, and discipline, was as important as any mechanical system aboard the Lancaster. Night missions also required coordination across multiple bombers. Overlapping fields of fire created protective barriers, but only if each crew maintained awareness and discipline. Tail gunners monitored not just their own bomber but adjacent aircraft, providing early warning of threats and reinforcing formation cohesion. RAF leadership understood that one alert gunner could save multiple crews, making the position critical beyond the immediate aircraft. By the time the Lancaster reached Berlin, these preparations were put to the ultimate test. German night fighters and flak batteries awaited, their presence inevitable. Yet the combination of training, vigilance, and anticipation gave British crews the edge. The tail gunner's role would be decisive, not just in defensive action but in ensuring the bomber completed its mission and returned intact. The mission over Berlin exemplified the intersection of technology, tactics, and human determination. Every radar blind spot, every procedural rehearsal, and every moment of focus converged in the approaching raid. As the bomber drew closer to the city, the crew braced, knowing that the night would demand every skill they had honed. And at the rear, the tail gunner prepared to face threats that could decide the fate of the entire crew. Survival over Berlin required more than courage, it demanded preparation. Tail gunners trained for months, learning to recognize enemy silhouettes, anticipate attack angles, and respond instantly. Flight simulators were rudimentary, but instructors used mock turrets and training rigs to rehearse reactions under pressure. Every gunner memorized bomber formations, typical enemy approaches, and escape maneuvers. The Lancaster crew drilled together. Coordination was crucial. Pilots needed to trust gunners to defend the rear, while gunners relied on pilots to maintain formation and evasive tactics. Briefings emphasized scenarios of approaching night fighters, stressing communication protocols and contingency plans. Discipline transformed fear into action, creating a rhythm where each movement, each adjustment, became instinctive. Preparation extended beyond human training. Crews learned to read instruments, anticipate mechanical limitations, and understand how bombers responded to evasive maneuvers. Every aspect, from ammo loadouts to turret lubrication, was checked before takeoff. These preparations allowed tail gunners to focus on the threat behind, confident in both their own readiness and that of the crew. The Lancaster bomber was both shield and weapon. Its rear turret housed twin .303 Browning machine guns, designed to track fast-moving fighters with precision. The tail gunner depended on mechanical reliability, turret rotation, and sight calibration to engage threats effectively. Maintenance was meticulous. Even a minor misalignment could render the guns ineffective at critical moments. Aircraft design also emphasized crew protection. Armored plating around gunners, oxygen supply, and communication lines ensured they could operate in high-risk zones. Engines provided speed and maneuverability, but evasive action required skill to avoid compromising formation. Every machine component, from hydraulics to ammunition feed, was integral to survival. British engineers understood that the human and mechanical elements were inseparable. A well-trained tail gunner could maximize the effectiveness of the turret, but only if the machine responded flawlessly. Maintenance crews worked around the clock to ensure reliability, knowing that in Berlin skies, failure was not an option. The Luftwaffe presented relentless threats. Night fighters, trained for aerial ambushes, coordinated with radar stations to locate bomber streams. Pilots approached from blind spots, aiming to exploit any lapse in formation or vigilance. Flak batteries added another layer of danger, creating corridors of unpredictable fire. Tail gunners faced multiple challenges simultaneously. Enemy aircraft were fast, agile, and often unpredictable. Visibility was minimal, and fighters could strike from any angle. The psychological strain was immense. A single miscalculation could result in catastrophic loss. Yet German confidence in their tactics also provided an edge for RAF crews. By studying patterns, anticipating attacks, and exploiting radar blind spots, tail gunners could counter threats effectively. The enemy was skilled, but the RAF relied on preparation, coordination, and precision to neutralize attacks. The tail gunner's vigilance was a linchpin, turning potential disaster into survival. Each action was a calculated response, measured against enemy behavior, ensuring both the bomber and its crew could complete the mission. The RAF's night bombing over Berlin was not random, it was carefully orchestrated. Every formation had a specific flight path, altitude, and timing designed to minimize exposure to flak while maximizing impact on strategic targets. Tail gunners played a critical role in this strategy, ensuring the rear of the formation remained secure. Commanders understood that a single attack could disrupt a mission. A fighter striking the rear could not only destroy the bomber but also compromise the rest of the squadron. By maintaining vigilance, tail gunners allowed the mission to proceed according to plan. Their actions transformed individual skill into collective strategic advantage. The broader strategy emphasized precision and timing. Bombing runs were sequenced to overwhelm defenses while preserving the integrity of the formation. Coordination between gunners, pilots, and navigators ensured that each element complemented the others, making the entire operation more effective than the sum of its parts. Flying over Berlin at night was a deadly gamble. Anti-aircraft fire, unpredictable night fighter attacks, mechanical failures, and human error created a landscape of constant danger. Tail gunners faced the highest personal risk. Isolated at the rear, they were the first point of contact for enemy fighters. Every decision had immediate consequences. Misjudging distance, angle, or timing could allow a fighter to slip past defenses. Yet rigorous training and rehearsed procedures provided a framework for managing this risk. Confidence in equipment, formation integrity, and crew coordination reduced uncertainty, but the inherent danger remained, creating an ever-present tension that tested nerves and skill. Risk extended beyond survival. The effectiveness of the entire mission depended on the tail gunner's alertness. One lapse could result in mission failure, crew casualties, and strategic setbacks. Risk and responsibility were inseparable, reinforcing the critical nature of the role. Courage and resolve defined the tail gunner's contribution. Operating in isolation, under threat from both enemy aircraft and anti-aircraft fire, required unwavering focus. Flight Sergeant Ellis and others relied on training, discipline, and trust in their crews to maintain composure. Resolve was amplified by the knowledge that their actions directly affected the lives of others. Every shot fired, every alert communicated, protected not only the bomber but the entire squadron. Mental toughness and human determination turned fear into decisive action, ensuring that the tail gunner became a linchpin in the mission's success. The combination of preparation, skill, and resolve allowed the RAF to execute raids with precision. Tail gunners embodied the intersection of human courage and strategic necessity, proving that individual focus could shape the outcome of critical operations. October 12, 1943. Berlin's night sky was illuminated by scattered searchlight beams and distant flak bursts. The Lancaster bomber, part of a larger formation, approached the city's defenses. Inside, the crew moved with practiced efficiency, each aware of the dangers below and behind. Flight Sergeant James Ellis manned the tail turret, eyes scanning the black void. Seconds stretched as shadows danced against the faint moonlight. Then, a dark shape emerged, a Messerschmitt night fighter, closing fast on the starboard rear. Reflexes honed through months of training took over. Ellis swung the turret, tracking the fighter with steady hands. He fired in controlled bursts, bullets ripping through the night. The enemy wavered, veering away, its approach halted before it could strike. Below, the bomber maintained formation. The pilot adjusted slightly to compensate for minor turbulence, unaware of the immediate threat behind. The mid-upper gunner scanned for additional attacks, while the navigator confirmed the flight path. Each crew member relied on the other's focus, trust forged through countless missions. German night fighters pressed the assault. Tracer rounds slashed through darkness, but Ellis remained vigilant. Another fighter emerged from a blind spot. He anticipated its trajectory, compensating for speed and angle. The turret responded flawlessly. Bullets tore into the attacker's fuselage, forcing a retreat. Behind him, the bomber remained unharmed, continuing toward its target with precision. Flak erupted beneath the formation. Explosions shook the airframe, sending vibrations through the fuselage. Pilots adjusted altitude and heading, while tail gunners tracked multiple potential threats. Every movement was calculated, rehearsed, instinctive. The combination of human skill and mechanical reliability allowed the Lancaster to weather the onslaught. Throughout the raid, Ellis's vigilance created a protective shield. Each fighter repelled or destroyed prevented further danger to the crew. The bomber's mission advanced uninterrupted, bombs poised for release over designated industrial targets. The meticulous training, preparation, and resolve of the tail gunner ensured that the crew remained focused on their primary objective, unbroken by the chaos surrounding them. German pilots, frustrated by the gunner's accuracy, adjusted tactics. Sweeps and ambushes were met with disciplined fire. Each engagement reinforced the psychological edge the RAF had gained. The enemy could approach but could not easily strike. The night was a battlefield of nerves as much as machines, with Ellis at the pivotal point, ensuring survival through anticipation and precision. As the formation neared its bombing run, tension remained high. Flak patterns shifted unpredictably, and the shadow of enemy aircraft lingered. Yet the crew executed maneuvers with calm efficiency, confident in the protection provided by the tail gunner. Every burst of fire, every adjustment, was a testament to the fusion of preparation, skill, and resolve under extreme pressure. By the midpoint of the operation, the Lancaster had navigated the most dangerous stretches. German defenses were active, but the combination of formation integrity and vigilant gunners allowed the bomber to press on. The tail turret remained a bastion of security, a small but decisive factor determining the fate of the crew. The raid's intensity continued as the bomber approached central Berlin. Tracer fire and flak converged, yet the Lancaster moved with purpose, undeterred. Ellis anticipated attacks, responded to each threat, and communicated with the mid-upper gunner to maintain coordination. The integration of human judgment and mechanical reliability ensured that every action contributed to survival. The first wave of enemy attacks was repelled. The bomber remained intact, the crew focused, and the mission on schedule. The night over Berlin had proven the effectiveness of training, coordination, and vigilance. The tail gunner had turned potential catastrophe into survival, safeguarding both aircraft and crew as they approached the city's defenses. As the Lancaster reached the heart of Berlin's night defenses, the danger intensified. Flak bursts erupted around the formation, tracer fire cutting through the darkness. German night fighters coordinated their attacks, aiming to strike from blind spots and overwhelm the bomber's defensive capabilities. Every second demanded vigilance. Flight Sergeant Ellis remained at the tail turret, scanning relentlessly. A Dornier fighter appeared from the port rear, its approach rapid and silent in the night. Reflex and training converged. Ellis tracked the aircraft, calculating speed, angle, and distance. He fired in precise bursts, forcing the enemy to break off its attack. Each engagement bought critical time for the crew and maintained the integrity of the formation. Another fighter attempted an intercept from below. The Lancaster shuddered as flak exploded nearby. Ellis adjusted the turret, anticipating the fighter's trajectory. The machine guns responded smoothly, tearing into the enemy aircraft and sending it away damaged. Behind him, the crew continued their bombing run, unaware of the immediate peril averted. The sequence repeated. Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs darted toward the rear, each countered by Ellis's calm, decisive fire. The bomber sustained minor vibrations from flak, but no hit struck critical systems. The tail gunner's focus transformed the chaotic assault into manageable risk. Every attack repelled preserved the lives of the crew and ensured mission continuity. Psychological pressure was immense. The darkness, the explosions, and the knowledge that a single lapse could be fatal weighed heavily. Yet Ellis's resolve did not waver. His training, instinct, and trust in the turret's mechanics allowed him to act decisively, controlling the engagement from the rear. Crew members, though unaware of the precise threats, benefited from his vigilance. As the Lancaster approached its bombing objective, bombs were released over designated industrial targets. The aircraft remained intact, its course uninterrupted. Flak continued to explode around them, but the combined efforts of pilot, gunners, and crew ensured stability. Ellis's turret acted as a final safeguard, deterring any late attacks from German fighters. German pilots, frustrated and disrupted by effective gunnery, were forced to retreat. The Lancaster's mission success was secured not by luck, but by precision, discipline, and the tail gunner's vigilance. The aircraft emerged from the heart of Berlin's defenses largely unscathed, a testament to coordinated skill and human determination. As the bomber turned for home, the crew began to realize the magnitude of the danger they had evaded. Debriefings would later confirm that multiple attacks had been thwarted by Ellis alone. His calm, precise action had prevented what could have been catastrophic losses. The knight had tested every skill, every reflex, and every ounce of courage, proving that the tail gunner's role could determine the fate of the entire crew. The raid over Berlin highlighted the convergence of human skill and technological reliability. Ellis exemplified the critical impact of vigilance under pressure, showing how disciplined focus could alter the course of a mission. The Lancaster and its crew had survived against formidable defenses, and the tail gunner's decisive actions ensured that survival extended to every man aboard. By the end of the operation, the bomber emerged intact. The crew had completed their objective, returned safely through hostile skies, and witnessed firsthand the decisive value of individual courage combined with teamwork. Flight Sergeant Ellis's heroism would be recorded not just in reports, but in the lives he preserved that night over Berlin. The immediate aftermath of the Berlin raid was a mixture of relief and awe. The Lancaster bomber returned largely intact, its crew shaken but unharmed. Flight Sergeant Ellis, at the tail turret, had neutralized multiple enemy fighters, ensuring the survival of every crew member. The significance of his actions was clear. Without his vigilance and decisive fire, the outcome could have been catastrophic. Debriefings emphasized both the tactical and human elements. Officers documented the engagement, noting the timing of Ellis's shots, the maneuvers of approaching German fighters, and the coordination with other gunners. Intelligence reports confirmed that enemy losses had been inflicted and that the bomber's mission remained unimpeded. The raid was both a success in operational terms and a demonstration of the crucial role of individual skill. The crew themselves began to process the events. Pilots reflected on the precision required to navigate the city under flak and night fighter threats. Navigators reviewed their calculations, ensuring that despite the chaos, the bombing objective had been met. For the tail gunner, recognition was immediate but understated. His actions had prevented disaster, yet the operation's focus remained on the collective accomplishment. RAF command analyzed the broader implications. Night raids over Berlin were inherently high risk. This mission demonstrated that rigorous training, preparation, and coordination could mitigate those risks. The effectiveness of tail gunners in such operations became a focal point, illustrating how a single alert and decisive crew member could safeguard an entire aircraft and influence mission outcomes. German reports painted a contrasting picture. Pilots recounted the difficulties of penetrating well-coordinated formations and the unexpected resistance from defensive gunners. Anti-aircraft crews admitted that the Lancaster formation's maneuvers, combined with alert gunners, had disrupted their attacks and limited effectiveness. The raid forced a reassessment of defensive strategies and exposed vulnerabilities in night fighter coordination. At squadron level, the raid reinforced confidence in training and cohesion. Crews who had witnessed the engagement recognized the importance of discipline and trust among team members. The Lancaster's safe return validated rehearsal protocols and highlighted the critical role of human focus under extreme pressure. Tail gunners, often isolated and exposed, were acknowledged as pivotal to operational success. Strategically, the raid contributed to the broader campaign against German industrial and military targets. While Berlin's defenses were formidable, careful planning, precise execution, and individual initiative ensured that objectives were met. The mission exemplified the RAF's evolving approach to night bombing, leveraging technology, skill, and courage to achieve disproportionate effects against heavily defended targets. The night's events also reinforced the psychological dimension of air warfare. German forces, frustrated and disrupted, faced both material losses and the impact of skilled defensive gunners. British crews, conversely, gained confidence from the operation's success, learning that preparation and resolve could turn overwhelming danger into manageable risk. By the time the Lancaster landed back in Kent, The significance of Flight Sergeant Ellis's actions was clear. He had preserved lives, ensured mission success, and demonstrated the decisive impact of alertness, courage, and skill. The aftermath of the raid highlighted not only operational effectiveness but the enduring value of individual initiative in the chaos of aerial combat. In the days following the Berlin raid, the full scope of its impact became apparent. German forces assessed damage to industrial targets, noting both destruction and disruption of production. Reports indicated multiple fighter aircraft had been damaged or driven off, and defensive coordination had been hindered. Panic, hesitation, and the effectiveness of alert gunners were recurring themes in German accounts. British command analyzed the raid's broader strategic implications. The mission demonstrated that precise planning and individual vigilance could mitigate the risk of high-intensity operations. Tail gunners, particularly, were recognized as crucial to mission success. Flight Sergeant Ellis's actions exemplified how a single crew member could influence outcomes for the entire aircraft and, by extension, the squadron. RAF leadership emphasized the value of training, coordination, and alertness in subsequent operations. Morale within Bomber Command surged. The successful return of the Lancaster, despite dense flak and multiple night fighter attacks, reinforced confidence in both aircraft and crews. Pilots and gunners understood that rigorous preparation and disciplined execution could overcome formidable defenses. The psychological reassurance extended beyond the crew. It demonstrated to the RAF and the British public that even heavily defended targets could be reached with skill and precision. German forces responded with adjustments. Radar coverage was reviewed and night fighter patrols were modified to account for the effectiveness of defensive gunners. Tactics were revised, and officers emphasized increased coordination to avoid gaps exploited by the RAF. Yet the raid had revealed inherent vulnerabilities that could not be immediately rectified. The psychological advantage gained by Britain persisted. German pilots now faced the certainty of alert, lethal gunners ready to repel them at any moment. The strategic lesson was clear: concentrated preparation, discipline, and individual initiative could achieve results disproportionate to the resources employed. The Berlin raid underscored that air superiority depended not only on aircraft numbers but on the skill and vigilance of those operating them. Each crew member's focus and composure contributed directly to operational success. The tail gunner's role became a point of emphasis in subsequent missions. Training programs incorporated lessons from the raid, highlighting the importance of constant vigilance, precise targeting, and coordination with the rest of the crew. Reports cited Ellis's engagement as a model for effective rear defense, demonstrating the interplay of human skill and mechanical reliability under pressure. Ultimately, the raid over Berlin reinforced the RAF's evolving doctrine. Success relied on more than firepower; it required preparation, courage, and precise execution. The Lancaster's return intact, with its crew unscathed, was a testament to the combined impact of strategy, technology, and human resolve. The operation strengthened morale, refined tactics, and underscored the critical influence of individual initiative in the broader theater of war. By the end of the week, the legacy of the raid was evident. RAF crews carried forward the lessons learned, and German forces reconsidered their defensive assumptions. Flight Sergeant Ellis's decisive action had not only saved his crew but had also contributed to the strategic understanding of how precision, vigilance, and courage could shape outcomes in the night skies over Europe. The Berlin raid of October 12, 1943, revealed the profound impact of individual skill and vigilance in modern aerial warfare. Flight Sergeant James Ellis, positioned alone in the tail turret, became the linchpin of his bomber's survival. His focus, precision, and calm under fire ensured the safety of the entire crew, demonstrating that courage and training could outweigh even the deadliest threats. The raid highlighted the intersection of human determination, technology, and strategy. The Lancaster bomber's design provided the tools, but it was the tail gunner's discipline and alertness that transformed potential vulnerability into decisive defense. Every maneuver, every burst of fire, exemplified the delicate balance between mechanical capability and human judgment, proving that individual initiative could alter the outcome of a mission and save lives. Strategically, the operation reinforced the RAF's doctrine of coordinated night bombing. Success relied not solely on numbers or firepower but on preparation, rehearsal, and mutual trust among crew members. Tail gunners became emblematic of this doctrine, their role critical in protecting formations and maintaining operational effectiveness against highly defended targets. Beyond the tactical and strategic dimensions, the raid underscored the human cost and resilience inherent in warfare. Crew members operated under extreme pressure, aware that a single lapse could be fatal. Yet through discipline, training, and trust, they navigated danger and achieved their objective. Ellis's actions exemplified the quiet heroism that often goes unnoticed but is essential to operational success. The Berlin raid stands as a testament to the power of preparation, resolve, and vigilance. Individual skill, exercised at the right moment, had a profound effect, not only on immediate survival but on morale, tactical understanding, and the conduct of future operations. Flight Sergeant Ellis's heroism demonstrated that in the chaos of war, courage and precision could save lives, preserve missions, and shape history.